Hi, everybody. This is Amanda, one of Mrs. Hill's history helpers. Today we will be reading Chapter 28, The People's Party. The place is Georgia. The time, 1892. A small, red-headed man, his name is Tom Watson, is standing on a wooden platform under tall pines. A crowd of men tries to hear what Watson has to say. He is a fine orator, but they are having a hard time of it. Watson, a congressman, is running for re-election. He is a member of a new political party, the People's Party, also called the Populist Party. The Democrats have sent a brass band to his rally. They are playing loudly, very loudly. They are doing it on purpose. There is something unusual about this Southern crowd. It is both black and white. The people are mostly poor whites and poor blacks. Watson believes they have something in common, their poverty. If they stand together, perhaps they can do something about it. His listeners know that on election day they will be under much pressure to vote for Democratic candidates. Voting is not private. The Democrats have become the only party with power in the South. They have been known to stuff ballot boxes with false votes to ensure their victories. They have paid voters for their votes. Those who attempt to vote for any other party risk losing their jobs, or worse. Watson wants to change things. The People's Party is campaigning for secret ballots. Watson and his populists see themselves as the party of the common man. They believe the government is working for the rich and powerful and taking advantage of the poor and weak. They believe that the people, ordinary people, must take control of the government. They are considered radicals. They want to change the system. Tom Watson was no common man. He was a skilled lawyer, and the largest landowner in all of Georgia. But he could identify with people in need. He helped guide a third party that flashed across the nation like a brilliant comet. That party, the People's Party, elected 5 senators, 10 representatives, and 3 governors. It championed ideas that were laughed at first, but later became law. And though the populists faded away, their ideas keep reappearing, in cycles, as most comets do. Those reformers spoke for ordinary Americans who didn't want to be left out of the good times that were being enjoyed by others. They demanded rights. Some people called them communists, some people called them hayseeds, but they weren't either thing. They were just people who wanted to take part in the governing process. They wanted their ideas heard. And it wasn't long before there were secret ballots and women's suffrage and many of the other things the populists supported. They demanded that government be strong and active and help the people, which was, and still is, a controversial path, but one the American government soon took. What were some of their other ideas? The populists wanted a graduated income tax. That means they wanted people to be taxed according to how much money they made. Wealthy people would pay more than poor people. They wanted senators directly elected by citizens instead of by state legislatures, as the Constitution then directed. They wanted the government to lend money to farmers. They wanted the government to protect the consumer from unsafe goods and unfair practices. All of those, and some other populist ideas, would be adopted by the other political parties and eventually become law. The land, said a populist declaration, including all the natural resources of wealth, is the heritage of all the people and should not be monopolized for speculative purposes. That was a conservation idea before most people thought about conserving land and resources. But let's get back to Tom Watson. Remember, he is standing on a wooden platform talking to farmers. They are angry. Farm prices are low. In 1865, cotton sold for $1 a pound. It is 1892 and cotton is 7 cents a pound. It costs more than 7 cents to grow a pound of cotton. In the Midwest, wheat prices have tumbled from $2.50 a bushel in the 1860s to 50 cents a bushel in the 1890s. Farmers can't pay their bills. When the farmers read the newspapers, they learn how good life is for America's millionaires. Some people are calling this time the gay 90s. William Vanderbilt has just thrown a big party for his friends in ritzy Newport, Rhode Island. They sat on red damask chairs and dug with silver shovels in a play sandbox filled with rubies and diamonds. The society columns are full of that story. It is enough to make anyone angry. The farmers can't understand what is happening. They are working hard and helping to feed and clothe the world. Yet while some people are getting very rich, they are losing their farms. The populist leaders tell the farmers that there is a conspiracy. They say the Eastern bankers, the railroad magnates, and the grain elevator owners are plotting against them. They are keeping the farmers poor so they can get richer. That isn't really true. No one is plotting against the farmers on purpose. The big money powers care only about themselves. They are working for their own interest, not against the farmers. But their interests hurt the farmers, and their money gives them political power. The farmers have little money and little political power. Populism has arisen out of frustration. Before the Civil War, life seemed simpler. Most people, then, were farmers who grew their own food, spun their own yarn, chopped their own timber, and had to buy little outside. Now farming has changed. Railroads and new equipment, and millions of acres of new farmland in the Great Plains have led farmers toward larger farms and single crop production. Farmers are growing big crops of wheat or cotton or corn. Those crops are not just for themselves and their neighbors. The American farmer is now competing in the world market. He is amazingly productive, but the more grain he produces, the more he floods the market. Because he farms so well, he is helping to drive prices down. There is more to it than that. The farmer is no longer independent. In the South after the Civil War, everything seems changed. Many of the large plantations have been broken up. For the old aristocrats, losing their slaves has meant losing their wealth. A new merchant class wields power. Farmers must buy their goods and farm supplies from the merchants. When they are overcharged, they can do nothing about it. They are often in debt to the merchants. They must grow what the merchants wish. Many of the merchants are also bankers. Soon they own much of the farmland. Proud former planters have become tenants. You can't be a modern farmer without modern equipment, especially on the big farms of the Middle West and Far West. Combines are needed to cut, thresh, and gather wheat. They are much faster and more efficient than human labor. To buy the new equipment, farmers must borrow from the banks. That puts them in debt. In order to pay the debt on farm equipment, to pay the mortgages on their property, and to pay railroad fees for shipping their crops, the farmers need cash. They need to sell their crops at a profit. They aren't doing that. They feel trapped. In Kansas, 11,122 farmers lose their farms to the banks between 1889 and 1893. Even those who hang on are angry. After all, they want to enjoy all the new things, bicycles, electricity, and so on, that other Americans are enjoying. They don't have enough money to do so. If there were more money in circulation it would help, they believe. And they are right. The populist platform includes a monetary plan. Many bankers make fun of it. They don't think these farmers are smart enough to know anything about money. The bankers are wrong. Farmers come by the thousands to farm meetings where they sleep in their wagons or under the stars, share barbecues, and listen to speakers who talk of economic and national problems. The farmers listen, argue, and learn. Populism is a democratic movement, and an impressive one. It would be easier for the farmers to pay the interest on their loans if more dollars were circulating and prices were higher. The populists know how money can be used to help or hurt groups of people.